I got Project Pluto along with my partner Lucas Cannarozzo, who designed like this presentation. Uh, Basically, I'm gonna go through the who, what, when, where, and the why of Project Pluto, and then how it connects to the Cold War. And so let's start with the what. Project Pluto was a top secret U.S. Air Force program in the 1950s and 60s to develop a new kind of missile called SLAM, which stands for Supersonic Low Altitude Missile. And unlike traditional missiles, which have engines that burn fuel and then drop into the ocean and like explode, this one will be powered by a small nuclear reactor. The idea was that it could like stay airborne for days, weaving around the globe at just a few hundred feet off the ground, going too fast and too low for the enemy radar to detect it, and just drop hydrogen bombs as it does that, I guess. And the engine was basically a ramjet that sucked in air and heated it with a nuclear core and blasted it back like out the back. But there wasn't any shielding on it because the earth was the shielding, so the exhaust was radioactive and it would like poison everything in its flight path even if it didn't drop any bombs. So next up is the who. The project was funded by the US Air Force, but it was developed by scientists at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in California. One of the lead physicists was a guy named Ted Merkel. They worked along groups like Sandia National Labs and contractors like Ling Tempo Vought. So it started in 1957, in January of 1957. I should add that. Uh, like throughout the late 1950s and early 60s, the team worked on developing and testing the nuclear ramjet engine, and they actually ended up making it work. And by 1961, they had a working prototype engine that could be tested on the ground. But despite the success of Project Pluto, it got shut down in 1964. So next is the where. The missile itself never actually flew, but parts of it did, especially the nuclear engine. They were tested at a place called Jackass Flats, which is a part of the Nevada test site. It's out in the middle of the desert, far from population centers, because well, obviously you don't want the population near nuclear testing stuff. It's kind of stupid. The location was also used for nuclear bomb testing, which is kind of cool, I guess. So it's already like radioactive and isolated. They tested the engine by strapping it to a giant rail system to make sure it could survive extreme heat, vibration, and stress. So why would we build something this crazy? It was the Cold War, so we were in an arms race with the USSR, and we wanted to make sure we had the best weapons. And Project Pluto was like a damn fine weapon. I mean, it was like super fast. I think it was super fast. It couldn't be stopped. It couldn't be tracked, and it could wipe out like a bunch of people with the bombs and radiation. And I mean, yeah, basically it. That's why. But funnily enough, Russia actually develops like a nuclear powered cruise missile, just like Project Pluto, in 2024. So they're like 60 years late, but whatever, man. They got it done. Woohoo. I'm not woohoo. We don't like Russia. I think we don't like Russia. I don't know. All right, so why was it canceled? It was just too dangerous. Like the environmental impacts would have sucked, obviously, and like we love the environment, don't we? Uh, uh, like you just be launching a flying nuclear reactor over your country just to get it going, and if it crashes, that would suck. And like we started developing better stuff like ICBMs and SLBMs, and they're just safer and harder to detect. And also, public and political pressure was growing. Like the idea of launching something that spreads radiation just by flying over stuff was like a little excessive, even for Cold War standards. So in 1964, they canceled Project Pluto. So how does this link to the Cold War? It was probably one of the most extreme examples of how intense and paranoid the Cold War had become. Like, the US was willing to fund and develop an apocalyptic weapon just to stay ahead. And this was in response to what they thought the Soviets might be doing. And it shows how the Cold War, like, wasn't just about strategy, it was about fear and escalation and just trying to, like, invent the most powerful things. The presentation is donezo.